In 2019, Disney released its CGI remake of The Lion King, and despite some very mixed reviews, it went on to obliterate 7 different box office records. This isn't even new for Disney, as several of those records were already being held by other Disney animated features. The animated world of Disney is much beloved, and for a lot of us, those flicks were a formative part of our childhoods or even our adulthoods. But those films haven't just been leaving their mark on our lives, they've been setting and smashing records in Hollywood for decades. 2019's version of The Lion King, despite some people asking why this film needed to be remade in the first place, proved itself to be a box office juggernaut, grossing $1.6 billion worldwide, surpassing Frozen 2 as the highest grossing animated film of all time. It's also the all-time highest grossing film in 3 other categories: a Walt Disney Pictures film, a musical, and a remake. It's Jon Favreau's highest grossing film ever as well. Oh, and we're not done yet. It was the fastest animated film to make $1 billion in just 21 days and had the biggest opening weekend for an animated film until Frozen 2 opened even bigger. Like, chill Lion King, we get it. Since so many Disney films knock each other off the leaderboard, we're gonna go way back to 1937 when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs became the very first full-length animated film that you could see in a movie theater. When you're the first one to do something, no one can ever take that title away from you. I haven't checked out this film in ages, and I bet some of y'all out there have never even seen it, but when looking at it for this video, I gotta say the animation is like super smooth and dreamy, and all the little animals are cute as heck. In terms of cash, Snow White also holds the number 10 spot for highest grossing film of all time if you adjust for inflation. Yeah, it's not bad for an oldie. Let's jump ahead to 1989 when Disney went into overdrive with The Little Mermaid, a film whose critical and financial success was a major influence on the animated film genre as a whole for years to come. Ariel, Flounder, Sebastian, and the rest kicked off a string of modern-era animated classics for Disney at the pace of one new film every year up until 2005. Technically, Oliver and Company came out in '88, but it didn't blow up like The Little Mermaid. Not only was The Little Mermaid the first Disney animated film to net an Oscar nomination since The Rescuers in 1977, the soundtrack absolutely slapped, doing double platinum within the first year, which was completely unheard of at the time for an animated film. That same soundtrack would eventually go on to be certified 6 times platinum. That's a lot of platinum. Within 2 years, Disney had done it again with the soundtrack for Beauty and the Beast, this time winning an Oscar for Best Original Song, Beauty and the Beast. The songs Belle and Be Our Guest were also nominated, and the film took home the Oscar for Best Score. Not only that, it made history as the first animated film to ever be nominated for the top Oscar, Best Picture. Unfortunately for Disney, the Academy favored a different beast that year, as Silence of the Lambs took home that award. With all this momentum, it's no surprise that 1992's Aladdin, with its unforgettable performance by the late Robin Williams, set a record as the first and only animated feature to ever gross $500 million at the box office. Maybe Aladdin's wish was granted, but that record didn't last for long because Disney was on fire and it broke its own record just 2 years later. In 1994, the original Lion King roared into theaters, with Simba ascending to the throne of the highest grossing film of the year, even beating Forrest Gump, another huge blockbuster that came out the same year. The Lion King subsequently became the highest grossing animated feature of all time, at the time, but it still holds the number 1 spot for highest grossing traditionally animated film of all time, so not including CGI. It's also the best-selling film on VHS ever, a record that's not likely to get broken at this point. Simba can rest easy, knowing that he'll forever be the king of video cassettes. In 1995, movies entered a whole new era when Toy Story, the first ever fully computer animated feature film, was released, a film that holds a 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, an almost impossible feat. Out of 92 critics, not a single one gave a negative review, not even like some toy-hating, spiteful contrarian just trying to troll. This was also Pixar's first outing in feature films for Disney, and holy, what an entrance. The record-breaking was a little quiet for Disney until Pixar started making waves again with 2003's Finding Nemo. Here's a little piece of trivia for you. Because they made Little Nemo so darn cute, people all ran out and bought clownfish as pets, which, like, were you not paying attention to the film? A quote from National Geographic said, "Ironically, Finding Nemo, a movie about the anguish of a captured clownfish, caused home aquarium demand for them to triple." Anyway, it was the first Pixar flick to win an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature and was the highest grossing film at its time of release. Speaking of release, set those clownfish free. Proving the computer animated films, I can just say CG, right? CG films were here to stay. 2004's The Incredibles was the first ever animated film, CG or otherwise, to win the prestigious Hugo Award for Best Dramatic Presentation. If you don't know the Hugos, they're like specifically for sci-fi and fantasy stuff. To give you an idea of what The Incredibles was up against that year, other nominees included Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, a great film, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and, well, hold up, Spider-Man 2? The one with Doc Ock. Okay, this is about Disney movies, I'm not getting into this now, but Spider-Man 2 versus The Incredibles? No, I can't even. Toy Story 3 blasts off in 2010, becoming the first ever animated film to gross $1 billion worldwide. Not surprisingly, it made the most money domestically and internationally that year too. Just 3 years after Disney bought Pixar Animation Studios, Pixar makes a film that topples the king. 1996's The Lion King had held the record for highest grossing animated film for 16 years, until Toy Story 3 came along and took the throne. 2012's Brave saw co-director Brenda Chapman become Pixar's first female film director. Pixar also completely rewrote their animation system for the first time in 25 years to make their visuals look even better. Oh, and Brave was the first of any film to use the Dolby Atmos sound format, so it didn't just look the best Pixar had ever looked, it sounded great too. Shattering records in 2013, Frozen blew away Toy Story 3 to become the highest grossing animated film of all time, a record it held until, as we mentioned earlier, it was trampled by The New Lion King in 2019. But Frozen wasn't done there. It was the 5th highest grossing film of all time, its 10th as of today, and made the most money of any film in 2013. Not only that, it's the all-time best-selling Blu-ray in the US. Original Lion King? I told you that your VHS record was safe. Let It Go, a song I don't think I personally ever need to hear again, was the first song from a Disney animated musical to break into the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100 since Pocahontas' Color of the Wind. One final feather in the film's cap, director Jennifer Lee became the first female director to have any film gross over $1 billion at the box office. And, spoiler, she'll do it again in 2019 with the sequel. Finding Dory set 2 domestic box office records when it made a splash with the biggest animated film opening in North America, and then swam on to become the highest grossing animated film in North America as well. Some conservationists warned that this film might encourage folks to go out and buy Regal blue tanks. That's what kind of fish Dory is, but you knew that, right? It's a good thing they didn't, because apparently blue tangs have razor-sharp spines on their tails that can really mess you up. Also, Ellen did a whole thing about protecting the Great Barrier Reef while promoting this film. It's so wholesome. Nice to see that she cares about fish, at least. In 2018, Incredibles 2 swooped in the wake of Finding Dory to become the best debut weekend for an animated film ever, with almost $183 million. It became the second highest grossing animated film ever, it's number 4 today, and the highest grossing Pixar film ever. It was also, for a hot minute, the fastest film to dash to $1 billion earned. But then our friend The Lion King came along a year later in what would prove to be an even more incredible year. Okay, 2019 was absolutely bonkers for Disney animated films. We've already talked about the monumental Lion King remake, but Disney also released 2 other animated flicks that year, and one of them was Toy Story 4. It became the second highest grossing animated film ever, it's number 4 today, and it won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature, making it the first Disney franchise to win the award twice. And finally, running neck and neck with The Lion King in 2019 is Frozen 2, which became the second highest grossing animated feature film of all time, literally the same year that The Lion King became the first highest. Like, people had a lot of time for animated films in 2019. What's also kind of cool about Frozen 2 is that despite it not making as much money overall as The Lion King, it still set the record for biggest all-time worldwide opening for an animated film. It's unbelievable that Disney's 2 best performing animated films ever came out 4 months apart. And in case you forgot, another little Disney-owned movie came out that year too, Avengers Endgame, a film that made almost as much money as Frozen 2 and The Lion King combined. Wow, Disney, I bet even your visitor washrooms have gold toilets at this point. I'm guessing there was a time when animated films were just considered kid stuff, but Disney's proven that they're serious business by building an unstoppable empire out of them, only getting tripped up by a pesky global pandemic. But history has shown that their films just keep on making more and more money. I wonder if Disney will ever have another year as good as 2019. Maybe come back to this video in 2029 and tell me that Frozen 13, Elsa vs. Scar just made more money than all 4 of James Cameron's Avatar sequels.